Strange Ride is brought to you commercial-free through the generous support of our patrons. Visit strangerideshow.com and click Donate to help keep the history of the weird on the digital airwaves. Savannah, you ready for this flipped episode?
I'm so ready.
This is our first Strange Ride flip. You're not ready.
Only because of what you, of course, picked to talk about today, which is like one of my worst fears.
Today, I'm going to try and explain why grown adults love movies based on children's toys.
Oh, well, that's not one of my worst fears, but that is a lot of what I am. So,
and I do not mean to suggest that I am better than you or any of those other grown adults. While I don't generally love movies based on children's toys, I am not above actual children's toys, like the Nintendo Switch, or YouTube videos about children's toys that I used to have and play with when I was some children. So I'm not trying to say today that I am better than you, because I'm not into some of these movies. But my argument today is not actually about nostalgia, or at least not primarily about nostalgia. It's tangentially about nostalgia at best. I believe there's something far more nefarious tempting us to 2-hour PG-13 entertainments about dolls. Also video game characters. Also Ninja Turtles. I think some of those are PG. And what I'm talking about, of course, the nefarious thing that's tempting us, say it with me now, is capitalism.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
It's also Steven Spielberg, who is kind of like if capitalism went to film school. We can't blame... Hot takes today. We can't blame the culture industry entirely, though, because it warned us at the very moment it was enacting its decades-long scheme to squeeze more money out of more age groups through a combination of merchandising and adult themes in a little movie Spielberg and Company called Gremlins. Yes, my name is Dr. Rob C. Thompson, here taking the reins on your strange ride, joined by your traditional host, Savannah Verrett.
Hello, everyone. And Gremlins is the thing that I am absolutely horrified by. Rob was like, oh, for the first mic flip, I want to talk about Gremlins. And I was like, what the fuck? Why? I don't hate Gremlins because the movie's awesome, but I'm so scared of them. Anyway.
Also, Johnny Cook, who just saw it for the first time.
Yes, I saw it like 2 days ago.
My approach to my Strange Ride episodes is going to be a little different than what you hear on Occult Confessions. Yes, we are in a pop culture podcast, so I'm talking about pop culture subject matter, but I'm also going to sort of like be bringing an essay to you all, like an oral essay where I'm going to try to prove something to you that may be a little controversial.
And we'll interrupt you every now and then.
Yes, well, no, of course. It's the traditional fare in that regard, but I'm just saying, like, it's not, here is the history of a thing like I do on the other show. This is me trying to like make my case, and you may or may not agree with me.
So
we'll see.
Rob's soapbox.
This is my soapbox, yeah, but with lots of history involved about pop culture
and making me think about Gremlins
and Barbie all in the same sentence.
I love Barbie.
Well, guess what? She's just a gremlin by other terms. Let's pledge it out.
Ooh, I don't think I know this pledge.
Savannah.
Now I'm like, I'm in Occult Confessions mind.
Cool, because I'm doing the talking. Not you.
I solemnly commit myself to keep my hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the vehicle at all times while on this strange ride.
I never get the feet and legs in the right order.
You haven't been
because if your feet are in there, you'd think your legs would be too, unless you're like, kind of like bowing your knees out.
I was like, hands, arms, feet, and legs. I see. You went hands, arms, and then I see. So you're at the extremity
head,
and you work
shoulders,
in.
knees, and toes.
Right.
Yeah.
You figured it out.
Sorry.
The long ancient riddle of getting into theme park rides safely.
We want to encourage you, as always, to listen to our sister podcast, Occult Confessions, where you can hear more of our voices talking about various topics that are about like religion and stuff, and occultism and Gnosticism and snakes.
And women sleeping with snakes.
Yeah. You know, that kind of stuff. We also want to encourage you to consider donating on Patreon and leaving us a review, please. We are a fairly new show to the podcastosphere, Strange Ride, that is. And we could use some of that love in the form of dropping some stars on Spotify, reviews on iTunes, or anywhere that you're listening, and let people know on your social medias, friends.
I would really appreciate that. It makes me feel good.
Just come on. Isn't that enough, friends?
Yeah.
Just to give Savannah a little good feeling inside.
Just a little bit of dopamine.
But don't give her any good feelings or dopamine after midnight.
No. No. You won't like what happens then in a sporting goods store. Okay, shall we get underway?
Yes.
It is normal to be nostalgic for our childhoods. But for children of the 80s, so this will be nice for you guys, because I'm not going to pick on you as hard. You just get to spectate me picking on myself.
Okay.
For children of the 80s, you guys are 90s kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Late 90s for me.
Late 90s, yeah.
96.
97.
Oh,
Yeah.
look at us.
Not too shabby.
Little Y2K babies.
Panicked about the end of the world, so let's have some
3
kids.
years old, 4 years old.
What was I saying? I'm saying it's normal to be nostalgic for your childhood, but for children of the 80s, that longing has taken on the strange and sometimes perverse desperation of necromancy. I want to speak broadly about children of the 80s. I'm going to do the same thing that scholars of the 19th century, of which I am one. We talk about the long 19th century because it's not like the year 1900 came and then suddenly the culture became 19th century style. The long 19th century refers to like that period that, you know, encompasses Victoria's reign, but all the industrial and technological changes, like they stretch beyond the 19th century. That's also true of the 80s, in my opinion. The 80s, for the purposes of like the culture and all the things I'm talking about, actually start in the late 70s with the Star Wars movies and merchandising and all that kind of business. And they last through the early 90s, where we complete and perfect all of the techniques that are born in the 80s, or I guess are really born in the late 70s. So it takes that. So it's the long 80s, and it's really the Zennials that I'm talking about. We'll get there.
It's kind of like the 80s is the middle of that bell curve, and then you've got the little couple years on each other end.
But you guys are children of this as well, so you're not like excluded. What happened during the 80s to me had never happened before, is I guess what I'm trying to say. But once Hollywood and the culture industry figured out how to do it, they then did it to you. You're totally also that.
Oh, yeah.
And you're probably more the audience now for like the Super Mario movie than I am, because I have kids. Anyway, I can
So are
bring
you
my
saying
kids.
that this is
but
Star Wars' fault?
yeah, Star Wars bears a certain amount of the blame for this. Yeah,
Well,
so you're not going to love
I know a lot about
that.
Star Wars. So
Yeah,
like,
you're not gonna
if you
love
listen
that.
to last month's episode where I talked about it for 2 hours straight.
So it's not enough for the 80s child to reflect wistfully on a simpler time. Rather, we often want to revive the mass cultural products of our youth in a way that maintains their appeal despite or perhaps because of the cognitive and hormonal shifts that come with adulthood. We want to have our childhood, but as adults.
Okay.
80s children have done a decent job of keeping our favorite pop culture icons alive through the last 40 years, whether as creators or as hungry audience members, rewarding corporations for doing a lot of gazing backwards. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have been rebooted and revived in various live-action and animated forms. The Ghostbusters have changed gender and personnel. The Transformers have had multiple successful runs at the box office. Even Super Mario has gotten nostalgic. In his most recent Odyssey adventure, which I recently finished for Nintendo's Switch console, he periodically moves from 3 dimensions into 2, allowing players to see the character in 8 bits for the first time since 1988. Not coincidentally, Mario has also received his, it's not really an 8, it is kind of an 8 bits, but
No,
it's
it
like,
is.
there's all the other bits layered on top of the 8 bits.
No, but I mean, but it plays the same as the 8-bit game.
yeah, right.
It doesn't have any of the fancy jumps that you have when you're out. And you can't throw Cappy when you're in the 8-bit thing, right?
No, that's true. There is no Cappy. Cappy was a brand new thing for Odyssey.
No, I know that, but I'm just saying, like, when you're in the 8-bit, it takes away, like, some of the main mechanics of the game, which is Cappy.
Yeah, you're almost literally playing, yeah. It's clever. Like, if Mario has different outfits, they'll follow him into the 8-bit world, so it's cool, but the reference is only for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you guys didn't even play 8-bit Mario.
I actually played a little bit.
But it's because your family was poor.
Yes. The only Mario games that I've played that are standalone Mario games are like the original, like on Game Boy Advance. Like the retro
your family
version.
wasn't that poor. I thought you were on an NES.
No, this is a Game Boy Advance in like 2010.
Oh, okay.
And then N64, Super Mario 64.
I mean,
That's kind of it.
my point here, I mean, I'm going to be a bit of a video game nerd here, and folks who have listened to the other episodes, particularly Five Nights at Freddy's, know my feelings on video games. I like a difficult game. Mario is not a difficult game. It's not a game for a grown adult who's good at video games.
Well, they can be. They can be difficult. Whatever. He's just saying, I'm just so good at video games.
I'm not, though. I'm really not. Like, I'm not like an esports person. It's just like...
Did you go to the dark side of the moon in Odyssey? That shit was hard.
Yeah, that was more difficult. But it's also skippable and unnecessary.
But it's a challenge. It's fun.
It is more challenging, yeah. But still, like, it's not going to keep me up at night. Like,
Rob needs to play Dark Souls.
I do play Dark Souls. Yeah.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh.
I finished Dark Souls.
Okay, well then Mario's not
It's not that big. I'm not trying to. I don't want to be that. I'm not that guy. I'm really not that good at it. I just like harder games, like an adult 10th. But that's the point I'm trying to make. I just want to drive home that the Mario game, difficulty-wise, is accessible to children. Like Dark Side of the Moon is optional.
Yeah,
you know what I
that's
mean.
true.
And a child can get to the end of that game.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
But that child, who is the audience for the game, at least in part, doesn't understand what the hell is happening when Mario drops into 8 bits.
No. Yeah.
Fair.
I would say that's true.
So that is targeted at me. Japan knows, right? Shigeru knows that me, as an adult, is going to pick up this game that he has also made for a child. So he has made the game both for a child and an adult.
He's made it for your inner child.
Yeah.
Right. He knows I'm playing this game, and he wants to reward me with this nostalgic throwback. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
It's not about how good I am.
It sounded like it was a little bit how good you were.
Just throwing that in, humble brag.
Let's make him play Baldur's Gate 3 on Tactician and see if he says he's good at video games.
Yeah, but is that like is that kind of game? I thought it was like
It's a turn-based.
Turn-based
turn-based RPG. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not necessarily good at those.
And that shit will kick your ass.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I finished Earthbound, but anyway. I feel like you just finished anyway. Not coincidentally.
I played it 3 times, Rob. Like I'm almost finished my
I'm
third
on my first
playthrough.
200 hours later, first playthrough.
Oh my god.
Not coincidentally, Mario has also received his own summer movie, at which more than 60%, fun fact, of the theater-going audience were over the age of 18.
I can corroborate that. That's the word. I saw it. The date came out, and I was surrounded by a bunch of adults. I don't think there were any kids in the movie theater.
Right.
And the movie was fine. I wasn't crazy about it. But literally anytime anything showed up that was slightly a reference, everybody around me laughed and pointed, and I was like, okay. I don't get it.
Both Odyssey and the movie are full of references for adults.
Yeah.
Children wouldn't get some of these things. Adults players who have decades of experience with this character. It's we still have our, like, imagine like your grandparents still having an attachment to a childhood character. It's a unique thing for our generation.
My grandma has a Howdy Doody doll in the basement.
That's terrifying.
And we've always been so afraid of it that she used to, when we would come over, she'd cover it with a blanket, so
Right.
we wouldn't be afraid of it.
But the culture industry is not producing more Howdy Doody for grandma. If the culture industry can, by the time I'm your grandmother's age, they'll still be doing Mario
for sure.
content. So the latest and perhaps most sensational iteration of 80s nostalgia is Savannah's favorite Barbie movie. While Barbie was first created in the 60s, her recent blockbuster movie was created by Zennials. I used that word before. Those are millennials born before 1985. Greta Gerwig and partner, I forget his name, Baumbach. They're both Zennials. So they are 80s children who made the Barbie movie. So Barbie's really an 80s Barbie.
Yeah.
She has rollerblades and stuff. They would have played in the 80s and 90s with versions of the doll like Rollerblade Barbie, who I think famously sparked and needed to be pulled off the shelves, and the jazzercising Great Shape Barbie and Ken.
They actually, in the movie, they have a lot of moments where they cut away and they're like, this was a real Barbie. And there was like a one called like Grow Up Skipper or something where they move her arm up and her boobs would grow and make it bigger.
Oh my God.
And then they had a pregnant one named Midge and everybody was afraid of her.
Yeah.
There was one called Sugar Daddy Ken, and he like looked kind of like a sugar daddy, but it turns out that like he just had a dog and the dog's name was Sugar.
He was Sugar's daddy.
Real dog. That was pretty awesome. It definitely did feel like it's interesting with that movie too, because it has a lot of humor of today, and it deals with a lot of the politics of today's politics, but it kind of throws it on its head, because like Barbie is starting to not become a perfect Barbie anymore, and they think it's because of the little girl that's playing with her is like growing up, and so she goes to the real world and finds out that it isn't the little girl that's playing with her, it's the mom that's playing with her, and the mom is depressed and shit, and that's why.
There you go.
Yeah, so
because Greta Gerwig is playing with her in making the movie. Right. It's very self-referential, and it unlike Mario or the Ninja Turtles movies, which are appropriate for children, Barbie's PG-13.
Yeah.
And tells the story of a child's toy to an exclusively adult audience. So even though my daughter actually did see Super Mario, she had no idea what was going on because we don't play video games yet. She's only 5. Not that I started when I was 5, so I should probably get her going. My fault. Sorry. Apologies, listeners. I will get on that. But
you can't let her be better than you, so.
Right. No, I have to make sure she's at least crappier at video games for I keep a step ahead. But here you are, right? This is a movie about a child's toy. That's what most baffled me about the movie, is that it was about a child's toy, but it was not made for children. Like, children weren't invited to the party. The political themes and all this, it's just too mature. It borrows its marketing strategy from the Marvel movies, albeit with very different subject matter. Barbie's incredible commercial success speaks volumes to the peculiar kind of arrested development that motivates us 80s children, but also 90s children's. We need to think no further. We need to think no further, by the way, than the bronies.
Oh, we're bringing...
Gotta bring in the bronies.
Yeah, okay.
A subculture of adult male fans of My Little Pony series, which started in 1981.
What? I didn't realize it started all the way back then.
Yes, My Little Pony. The adult male fans.
Well, I knew that
If you're an adult male fan, guess what? Your original My Little Pony was an 80s pony.
No, but are you saying that bronies were a fan? Like, bronies were a thing since the 80s?
No.
Oh, that's
I'm
what I
saying
thought
My
you were
Little
trying to
Pony
say.
was a thing since the 80s.
Yeah.
And all the bronies, their original experience with My Little Pony was in the 80s. So they can't let them go, those little ponies from the 80s. Just like I can't let Mario go. Just like Greta can't let Barbie go. Or she's being paid millions of dollars not to let Barbie go. Well,
now that it's like one of the most successful movies ever.
Weeks before the movie came out, she was just playing with dolls for fun. In movies like Barbie, the adult is invited back to childhood in a way that allows them to maintain all the rights, privileges, and preferences of adulthood. This trick was first invented for the 80s kid, for whom popular culture self-consciously eroded the boundary between content for children and content for adults. The Gremlins are beginning to creep around the corner.
Don't say that.
Childhood was commodified during the Reagan administration in ways it had never been before. Changes in government policy and technology brought more focus to the growing market for children's games and toys. As Ronald Reagan's Federal Communications Commission relaxed controls on children's programming, Saturday morning cartoons became, quoting here, half-hour commercials for toys. So before, you couldn't create these marketing overlaps because the fact that you were selling a product off of a television show was in violation of federal law. But when Reagan came into power in the 80s, Reagan threw all that over. So that meant you could have a cartoon that also had a toy associated with it, and the primary purpose of both was to get the child to buy.
Oh, that feels really scummy. But he also killed all the birds, too.
You win some, you lose some.
I know.
The success of Star Wars merchandising in the late 1970s gave birth to a whole industry devoted to creating characters that were televised, packaged, and sold as action figures. McDonald's capitalized on the merchandising craze by debuting the Happy Meal in 1979.
Oh.
It's really, like, it's kind of, when I started
That is
looking into
weird.
this, like, my theory was that it was all the 80s. And then every time I looked up how this worked, it's just like the internet was telling me, yes, Rob, you're right. Of course, Rob.
Of course,
You know it. You've known it all along, Rob. 1979, the first Happy Meal, Toys R Us, bolstered by the growing appetite for dolls and games, grew to become an international chain in 1984. It didn't start in 84, but it opened its first store in Canada in 1984.
Oh. And it's making a comeback. It just announced that
that's-
it's opening like 25 stores in America again or something
I was
like
about
that.
to say that's nice, but that's just my inner
Yeah, I know.
80s child. It's like, oh, Toys R Us.
It's coming back!
Yeah, because
I've been in a Toys R Us like twice in my life, and they were
Aw.
magical experiences.
They are,
Yes.
though.
For an 80s kid, there were two places you wanted to be, McDonald's and Toys R Us.
Interesting. I can't imagine you
What about
eating
Chuck E.
McDonald's.
Chuck E. Cheese was until the 90s.
Oh.
Yeah. Where
Now
were
Chuck
we?
E. Cheese is competing with FNAF. So
Merchandising created a more intimate relationship between the child and the character that wasn't entirely new, but never been as fully realized as the Masters of the Universe, He-Man and She-Ra, G.I. Joe, My Little Pony, Thundercats, Gem, Transformers, or the Ninja Turtles achieved. Some of these shows have kept on, some not so much. We don't see Gem anymore. Thundercats even hasn't really had much of a revival, but there's still a lot of nostalgia for Thundercats. I didn't,
I'm
of
pretty
course,
sure there
play
was
the
just
G.I.
like
Joes.
there was just like a She-Ra show that was out a couple of years ago.
on
yeah.
Netflix,
On Netflix,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, good old streaming, right? Can't let stuff go. I'm watching Futurama again after like a decade,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And the new season, I just started watching it.
Yeah.
Very good. My favorite show of all time. By the way.
More of the same, but that's what we wanted.
Yes.
Yeah, but we rarely
I just want
get
the
that.
nostalgia.
Often
I want 9
right.
seasons of the same
Of the
show,
same damn
the same
thing.
episode, slight changes.
Yeah.
The
can see
character had a life on the screen, is what I'm trying to say, and a life in the child's house. Like a souvenir from a fantasy land, the doll was a way for children to make a piece of that other world, that fantasy world, a part of themselves. The character had adventures created by animators and broadcast on the smaller big screen, but it also had quests created by children in their backyards. The character, held, moved, and voiced by children like me, became an extension of me in ways that no merchandise characters non-merchandise characters ever could. You had to merchandise to create that intimate relationship.
Okay.
Follow me so far?
Yeah. I mean, like, you'd rather pick up a Transformer because you saw it doing cool stuff on the TV than, like, just some random doll that would be given to you
But
or
also,
something.
you could then make the Transformer go on adventures in your brain with the physical toy instead of only having the canon you've seen on TV.
Okay.
Which is what, yeah, so it's more like the merchandising is what's changing the alchemy of pop culture. Pop culture before, like John's saying, would have just been like the TV show.
Okay.
There wouldn't have been this vast line of dolls and
I
toys.
gotcha.
But now you can have the whole
Both.
thing.
Okay.
It's like you can pull it off the screen and hold it and play with it. And,
Okay.
And that creates an intimacy that you didn't have with the character before.
I gotcha.
Video game protagonists like Mario, Link, Mega Man, my personal favorites, the Holy Trinity of the Nintendo universe, offered a far more constrained version. Some people might throw in Simon.
What about Tom Nook from Animal Crossing?
What?
Tom Nook!
Not an 80s child. Offered a far more constrained version of this identification, but 8-bit heroes also became more intimate friends through the mass distribution of home video game consoles like the Sega Master System and the Nintendo Entertainment System. This is hard to imagine, but before the Atari 2600, kids had to gather their quarters and head to the arcade, which was a building separate from your house where you went to play video games.
That would suck. That would really suck.
It was more
honestly.
social, though.
No, that's true. But then you can also nowadays play online with other people.
Yeah.
Imagine if you went to the arcade to play Baldur's Gate 3 and then the
No.
only console that could play Baldur's Gate 3 is lined up all the way
No.
around the arcade you
And
couldn't
then
play.
you have one of the romance scenes, and everyone
saw it.
Everyone's watching your
No,
romance.
absolutely not.
I'm sure they'd have multiple cases for that. But anyway, before the Atari 2600, you had to go to the arcade. The home console allowed game developers to profit off the sale of games now directly to consumers, as opposed to the arcade, where the arcade had to buy the game. Now you were profiting off of selling it to me. In the process, this transformed video games into an easily accessed component of domestic life. Commercialization bred characters shaped by mass market forces and customized by personal encounters in the home. Millions of people across the globe played Super Mario Brothers, but on my television screen, only I could get him through the hazards and challenges of the Mushroom Kingdom to rescue the princess. Millions also watched the Ninja Turtles, but in my house, Leonardo and Donatello were my own turtles, performing martial arts and fighting Shredder according to the show's canon, but as John's saying, also going on adventures with He-Man, exploring the mud pit behind my parents' shed, etc., according to my own
little
whims.
Little
Rob
in the mud pit.
with his Leonardo. Leonardo is my favorite. This blend of intimacy and commercialization helps to explain why 80s kids can't let the pop culture of our childhoods go. It wasn't just pop culture. It was also a very personal part of our lives and identities. And this then, of course, extends to you guys who had the same experience. They invented it with me. We didn't just watch these characters, we were these characters. But the influence of mass merchandising can't fully account for the continuing adult demand for movies about Barbie, Mario, Michelangelo, etc. Because 1960s Chatty Cathy and Susie Homemaker never had their own movies, nor did the 1970s Dawn dolls. These are all toys the kids played with in these eras, very popular toys, but we never had movies about these toys. Batman, by contrast, benefited from existing in both action figure and televised form. Follow me on Batman. In fact, Batman's revival gets to the heart of the strange alchemy of the 1980s mass market. In the 1960s, Batman was a children's television show, also a movie starring Adam West. Mm-hmm. The violence was cartoonish, the sex was G-rated, and the tone decidedly comic.
Was there sex in the Adam West series?
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, Catwoman was there was attraction there, but by G-rated, I mean it didn't go further than there being this weird, sexual tension between them. In 1989, Batman returned in a PG-13 movie, directed by Tim Burton, in which Michael Keaton's Cape Crusader struggles with the childhood trauma.
Did PG-13 exist by that point?
It did in 1989.
Oh, okay.
We're coming for it.
Okay.
Don't get ahead of me.
I'm sorry. I'm just thinking because I love that movie so much. That's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Well, I'm going to talk about it a little more. So let me just compare, right? Uh-huh. So we have the 1960s G-rated, decidedly G-rated, pow, bam, like the literal words are on the screen. In 1989, Michael Keaton's Cape Crusader struggles with his childhood trauma of his parents being murdered, and he stops Jack Nicholson's Joker from committing mass chemical homicide.
Yeah. Well, but not before he kills a couple people.
Right.
And you watch the news reporters die on TV and stuff.
Yes.
Oh, and then the parade at the end, and he's gassing all the people. Oh my God, that movie is crazy.
Did he start that movie
homicide.
by falling into a vat of acid?
That's how the Joker became the Joker too. And the dude had to do plastic surgery on him, and he was the only way I could fix your face was to glue it into that smile
that's horrifying.
and shit. Oh,
if you ever showed a child just that,
it's so scary. I can still perfectly picture his hand slowly sinking into the vat of acid and shit. It's awesome. That movie is so good.
Not G-rated, decidedly.
No, it's definitely not G-rated. I mean, you watch Batman get shot at Bruce Wayne get shot at one point, and the only reason he survived is because he put a tray underneath of his shirt or something and stuff. But you watch him get shot.
Batman, like 2023's Barbie, took a product made for children and matured it for an adult audience. Although the 1989 Batman was not marketed directly to children, McDonald's offered a Happy Meal featuring characters from its equally violent sequel, Batman Returns, a movie in which Danny DeVito's Penguin bites off a man's nose.
And sexually harasses a bunch of women and tries to kill a bunch of babies. Literally kidnaps a bunch of babies and is going to throw them into a river or something and puts a bunch of missiles on penguins. That's kind of cartoony, though. But
you said the original Batman with Adam West started with the TV show and the movie in the 60s, right?
Mm-hmm. For children.
29 years later.
So Barbie. Well, no, I don't know, but yeah.
The adult Batman was 29 years or so later than the Adam West Batman. So they're literally marketing the same kids who are watching Batman in the 60s. It's marketed to them, right?
But exactly also children. But that was to Tim Burton's objection. So the culture industry's earlier successes that same decade with movies that crossed child and adult audiences made Tim Burton's adult Batman conceivable and the subsequent Happy Meal inevitable. Burton objected, though. This actually ended Tim Burton's relationship with Batman. because he was producing Batman for adults, which I think was really only possible because of the history that I'm going through, because of Gremlins, that you could make a Batman for adults that was also for children, because he didn't want it to be. Tim Burton said this is not for kids. But then McDonald's got involved, marketed toys to children off a movie that was not for children. And they fired Tim Burton because Tim Burton had produced a movie that was not appropriate for children.
You mean Warner Brothers had fired him?
He was, yes, removed from the Batman franchise after that movie because...
After the second one, though.
Because of McDonald's.
Okay.
He had never intended for McDonald's to become involved in his movies.
I got you. So the first one was not marketed towards children,
No,
then?
it was for adults.
But then they realized the kids liked Batman, and then they
Of course kids like Batman.
Well, of course. No, I'm not saying
Batman was
that,
created
but...
for children, yes.
No, I know. But that movie was not made for children.
Right, but that's what's confusing. Throughout the 1980s, the culture industry perfected a method for taking adult products and making them available, or at least interesting, to children. Let me tell you a little story from my childhood. One of the girls in my pre-K class, who looked just like the robot daughter from Small Wonder, only without the apron. That's a reference for people listening, not you two.
Yeah, I have no idea what that is.
She had a father. Hey there, Hades kids. She had a father with a pair of VCRs at home, and he used to make copies of popular movies. She would bring those movies in for the teachers to show at the end of the day on a 25-inch television they rolled into the playroom on a cart. Because again, it's the 80s. Not a flat screen, kids. This TV has dimensions. I will never forget the day that she brought Ghostbusters to class. I will also never forget the fit my mother threw afterwards. At the tender age of 5, I had been begging... 5, right? Pre-K. Let me say that one more time.
Yeah.
Pre-K. When I was 5 years old, I had been begging my parents to see the movie Ghostbusters, a movie my mother would not let me watch under any circumstances.
Because it is not for children.
Given scenes like one in which Dan Aykroyd's character Ray enjoyed oral sex from a floating spirit, I absolutely see where Mom was coming from. I am not showing that to my 5-year-old today. The teachers protested to my mother that they'd only shown the appropriate bits, and I do remember them fast-forwarding through the movie quite a bit. But Mom pretty well shut down our classes' afternoons around the TV for the rest of the school year.
I bet she was super popular in class after that.
Right.
They had no idea, and I bet she wasn't the only one who complained. I just
bet.
know that she was upset about it, and she said something.
I mean, like, even some of the ghosts in that movie are scary. Like, the librarian at the beginning is a pretty scary-looking ghost. I mean, the Slimer's not. Oh, but the gargoyle things, they're scary, too.
Yeah, at the end with that portal thing, that's horrifying.
Gozer, like, in and of itself is kind of terrifying.
Honestly, humanoid marshmallow, terrifying as well.
Okay, but that was my favorite character. And the Sigourney Weaver plot with Rick Moranis, like, they totally have to bang in order to open the portal. It's just a lot.
And then she's also, like, talking to Bill Murray, like, I want you inside me.
Yes. And she's possessed,
Yeah. No, none of this movie is actually
not for children
like,
at all.
I think about
They just fast-forwarded through the whole movie.
I do like the part where the eggs cook on the countertop, though. That part was cool when I was a
I
kid.
like the refrigerator, too, when you open to the other dimension. Anyway, so thanks, Mom. Given scenes... what was I saying? The reason I wanted to see the movie so badly and carried my own Stay Puft Marshmallow Man to school, I was obsessed with the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, was that I watched a kid-friendly animated version of Ghostbusters on Saturday mornings. The show featured the exact same characters, the same converted hearse and fire station, and the same Slimer and Marshmallow Man. Even though I was a relatively squeamish kid, I'll admit, I collected the often grisly merchandise, including a skeleton that could trap Egon and Winston in its ribcage.
Poor Egon and Winston.
I think that it also oozed slime, but Mom naturally would not let me have the slime.
But that's the best part of those toys.
Naturally, I was desperate to see the movie, right? Can you imagine if you're obsessed with this IP, essentially, and there is this movie that's out there, but you can't see it? It's going to kill you, especially if you're a 5-year-old.
Oh, definitely.
So I I was desperate to see the movie that had launched my obsession, but the movie was, as we're saying, decidedly for adults, or at the very least, teenagers. Eventually, my parents let me watch some of a tape of Ghostbusters on our new VCR, a few minutes of city-crushing Marshmallow Man action, and that was it. No Gozer.
No.
No library. None of that.
Did you enjoy it?
Yes, I loved it. That's all I really wanted, was to watch Marshmallow Man crush things. Because he was the best. He is the best. I love him. Ghostbusters was far from alone in the way it straddled child and adult media. The Terminator and RoboCop were far worse in their depictions of graphic violence. Both were rated R. But they were marketed to children in analogous ways. RoboCop, you guys know this movie?
I mean, I know of RoboCop, but I've never seen RoboCop.
So it satirized the relationship between masculinity, media, corporations, and the government, and the violence of the movie was part of the point, but none of what I'm describing was intended for children.
Okay.
The near death of Alex Murphy at the hands of sadistic criminals, including the dad from that 70s show, and the impetus for his resurrection as true story. That's who plays the arch villain. Anyway, the impetus for his resurrection as RoboCop involved the gang haphazardly destroying Murphy's body parts one by one.
Oh.
Brutally violent.
So, like, you get to watch him?
Yes, you watch them, like, yes.
It's like a Saw movie.
Kind of, at that point. And yeah, I guess I sat through that, no problem. But when I was an adult, not as a child. Because you have to destroy his whole body for him to need to be fully androided into RoboCop. Mm-hmm. Nevertheless, RoboCop was turned into an animated TV series for kids the year after the movie was released. Similarly,
but why though? So, like, do you think that was it like the movie came out and then they saw that kids were kind of interested in it, or do they think that they were like, oh, but we could take this entertainment and turn it into a kid thing?
It depends on how much of a conspiracy theorist you are. Was it an accident that children were interested in RoboCop, or did they know when they created the movie that children would think the character is cool and that they could then market it accordingly, even though the whole movie is not for children? Mm-hmm. Vern Hover, what is the director's name? He made Starship Troopers as well. His movies are famously misunderstood because they skirt the line of satire so close to the edge. Like Starship Troopers, the actors themselves, like Denise Richards, didn't even know that it was a satire while she was making it, or Doogie Howser. Yeah, they had no idea. Anyway, but that was the 90s. This is RoboCop. We're also talking about
the RoboCop like show kind of him as like a superhero kind of thing.
Yeah,
because kids love superheroes.
Yeah.
They've always loved superheroes.
It's a cartoon. Yeah, he's going around.
It's like the Batman in the 60s,
beating the bad guys. Yeah. But there's this movie that's sticking in the background that is grisly, horrific, and satirical and deep, and about corporations controlling the justice system. And
it's like if the first Tim Burton Batman was before the Adam West.
Right, exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. And the same is true of Ghostbusters, as if the first Tim Burton movie is before. It's still happening in that direction. Terminator does the same thing. A series of video games released for both Nintendo and Sega in the early 90s, in my long 1980s. But the Terminator movies are not for children. No. Graphically violent movies, and terrifying. Just like my action figure made me feel like a part of the children's television show belonged to me, animated series like Ghostbusters and RoboCop made kids, often young kids, not even in grade school, feel like a part of the adult mass cultural world pertained to and had interest in them. I wanted a piece of the adult entertainment world at 5. Ghostbusters and RoboCop existed in the adult sphere, which gave children the impression that we were missing something. There were occult secrets in adult media, without which we could never fully grasp the awesomeness of our favorite characters. Right? Wouldn't you feel this way as a child? I definitely felt this way as a child. I mean, this is what inspired this whole thing that I'm doing right now is I saw the Barbie movie and I thought about Ghostbusters right away. It just all clicked together.
Funny.
Do you think adults that liked the original like RoboCop movie watched the show
The
marketed
TV
for
show?
kids. Yeah.
I doubt
Like if
it.
they really liked RoboCop.
I mean, I guess it's possible.
I
Why
mean,
not?
Because that would happen nowadays, though.
Like Star Wars people watching Rebels.
Yeah.
Like Rebels is for kids, but like
But it's good though.
yeah, that's what I mean. Like Star Wars fans will like watch stuff because it's Star Wars. It doesn't really matter who it's
Yeah.
marketed
My
towards.
point is
exactly.
what Disney's up to with that was invented at this time period.
Okay.
What's happening there is the overlap of adult and child media. Adults consuming media that is theoretically made for children. That's the Super Mario movie. That's
And
the
that's
Ninja Turtles
Bronies.
movie. That's Bronies.
What about where does Bluey fall into this?
Oh Lord.
Bluey?
Bluey? It's like the best TV show ever made,
exists.
but
Like
it's literally
Cocomelon?
made for babies. No, exactly.
No,
Cocomelon.
it's these the Australian or New Zealand dogs that
Australian?
make
Oh,
parents look bad.
Australian
Yeah.
cattle dogs?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice, I
they're-
have one of
They're
those.
They're perfect parents and they are perfectly
they're
raised
healers.
their children.
They're
Yeah, the healer. Yeah. That's awesome.
Bluey's
Anyway.
amazing.
Yes, sure. But unless you're like a dad and you're like, I can't be that freaking patient with my kids all the time. While it's common for children.
yeah, Bandit's the best dad in the world, Rob.
Right, that's the problem. While it's common.
He's a millennial.
He's a millennial. While it's common for children to desire access to adult media, the culture industry traditionally pushed back. Let's also think about this. Until the 80s, the culture industry told children, this is not for you, you're not allowed to have this.
Oh.
In 1966, the Motion Picture Association of America replaced the Hays Code, which involved voluntary self-censorship of all movies, with the rating system. This is true. So movies before 1966 are generally not rated because they followed a code that made the movie for a general audience in theory.
Oh.
There was no curse words and, sex was limited and all these sorts of things.
Okay.
The system was more permissive than the Hays Code, the new rating system, because it allowed you to have more sex and curse words and violence in your movies, because not all movies were striving for the same standard anymore. Now you just had to hit the PG, and if you couldn't hit the PG, then fine, you made an R movie. But it allows the R movie to exist where it might not have existed in 65.
I gotcha.
Yeah. So permitted, but in 1984, the same year that Ghostbusters rated PG. Ooh, I saved that. Ghostbusters. Let me say that one more time, Savannah. You just told me all that adult content.
Yeah.
Rated PG.
Which is crazy.
Insane.
Yeah.
And Terminator were released rated R.
Oh, I was about to say, there's no way Terminator was
No.
rated PG.
They were both released
Okay.
in 1984. The same year, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom was deemed too violent for a PG rating.
I agree with that, though. Watching that guy rip that dude's heart out of his
Yeah.
chest, scared me so bad.
Well, the censors agreed, the people who rated the movies, and Steven Spielberg pitched a little fit. The invention of the PG-13 rating suggested the tension mass media producers were causing with their hope for children to consume more mature content. Why would Steven Spielberg pitch a fit that his movie was rated R? Because he wanted children to watch the movie. And he knew if children didn't come to the movie, it would not make as much money because Steven Spielberg is capitalism who went to film school.
So there was no PG-13 originally?
Not until that movie.
And it's crazy, too, because Raiders of the Lost Ark is not a PG movie either.
Neither is Gremlins, I'm about to argue.
No, I mean, obviously not, but, at least with Gremlins, there's, comedy. Well, I guess
Do you know
Indy
what
has
Gremlins
comedy.
is rated? PG. PG-13 didn't exist.
Oh.
It's one of the reasons
that it
subsequently was
It
created.
definitely should not be PG. But I'm just thinking with Indy, you literally watch that dude's face melt at the end.
Yes.
Even I have trouble now as an adult watching that part because it's scary.
The new rating gave parents permission to let their children see movies they might otherwise have forbidden and satisfied the cultural industry's desire for a larger audience. PG-13 says, well, it's not R.
So it can't be that bad.
Right. It's allowing Spielberg to sneak what is R-rated content into a movie that is not qualifying for PG.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So is Temple of Doom the first PG-13 movie ever?
That's my understanding.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess to be fair, though, there is a difference between watching him cartoonishly rip that guy's heart out than like a Saw movie.
Yeah, but the Saw movies were not even dreamed of
No,
in the 80s.
no, you're right.
I mean, I guess if we're thinking
You're
like
right.
Hellraiser is a pretty violent movie.
Oh,
And in the
Hellraiser.
80s, that was not a cartoonish ripping out of that man's heart.
No,
that
you're
was,
right, though.
Yeah,
You're right,
for
though.
the special effect. I mean, if you
Yeah.
think about Hellraiser and compare those special effects to...
I mean, Hellraiser, I only just watched that like a year ago, and it's one of my favorite horror movies now,
It's
but
so
that movie
good.
is fucked
Yeah,
up.
it's terrifying.
Though I don't even know how they did the effects of the guy crawling around in the... Oh my God. It's so good.
None of this is to suggest that the culture industry, particularly Hollywood, was wholly uncritical of its own impact on children. And now we're getting to the thing you've been waiting for. The industry expressed its misgivings in the genre, known as much for its disturbing images, as we're talking about with Hellraiser, as its conservative ideology. Also Hellraiser, right, where he's punished for his sins and for, you know, the cheating wife, and all these characters are punished. And it's the innocent daughter who comes out okay.
Yeah.
Remembering all these things.
No, yeah, but like I'm...
Basic 80s horror movie thought process. The sinner is punished.
It's always the
Yeah.
innocent that makes it out.
Yep.
But she was like tempted and shit
She
and
was,
stuff
but
like
she
that.
overcame it.
But you're right. I mean, but she did
Got
play
out
with the
alive.
thing.
She did. She shouldn't have played with that thing.
What is it? The fucking box or whatever. The labyrinth puzzle
Whoa, yeah,
thing.
the puzzle, yeah.
Yeah.
What I'm talking about, though, is not that movie. I'm talking about Child's Play. In 1988, Child's Play...
Hold on a second.
I'm getting
Child's
there.
Play.
I'm getting there. We got to start with Child's Play. Child's Play, I'm going to spend a lot of time on Gremlins, so just give me a second.
Okay.
Child's Play told the tale of a doll magically possessed by a serial killer who went around slashing and murdering.
Mm-hmm.
The commercials and posters for Child's Play so disturbed me as a child that I took my Buddy doll and tossed him in the closet, refusing to take him out no matter how many times my parents asked about him.
Wait, your parents bought you a Chucky doll?
It was a My Buddy doll. It was
No.
not a Chucky doll.
No, I know, but was that a thing before the Chucky movies?
Correct. I'm going to explain.
Oh, that's terrifying. I did not
didn't
know that.
that.
The resemblance between Chucky and My Buddy was no accident. In the movie, Chucky was a good guy doll.
Oh, that's what it, yeah.
My doll was a My Buddy doll. But come on.
yeah.
Good guy, My Buddy. And they were roughly the same dimensions. They wore roughly the same clothing.
Wow.
According to the movie's creators, Chucky was an amalgam of several dolls going back decades. And it is true that there's a doll in the 70s who looks almost identical to Chucky. But the My Buddy doll, like it was so...
I gotcha.
It was similar enough that it caused me nightmares. His immediate counterpart in the 80s was a toy commonly found in many little boys' bedrooms. Chucky wasn't created for a child audience, but his pervasive presence in the culture was difficult for a child like me to miss. I knew about him.
Oh, yeah.
In Child's Play, the toy had dark secrets.
Even my little brother nowadays, I'm sorry not to
Yeah, go
interrupt you. YouTube is kind of doing that thing nowadays too, where these like children content creators will be like, don't answer the phone. Don't answer the phone at 3 a.m. And it'll be like you'll see a YouTuber do it, and like Chucky will call them and then try and murder them.
Oh.
Like my little brother knew who Chucky was. He's like 12 now, but
Well,
like
yeah, but when he was
would know
younger.
who Pennywise was,
Ooh.
who is terrifying
Yeah.
and not anywhere close to being for children. But he knew who Pennywise was because these children YouTubers were like, "Oh, Pennywise called me at 3 a.m. and now I'm gonna die." Like, but then they portray it as this is real life too. So my little brother was like, holy shit.
And you're a child, yeah.
This clown could call me at 3 a.m. and I'm going to die.
I mean, I guess, do they get views this way? I don't
They do.
understand the
They do.
motive. Yeah,
The
so-
3 a.m. thing has kind of become a meme now, but for adults, because adults are like, oh, that's so fucking stupid. But for children, they're like, oh shit, 3 a.m. is like the time that bad guys call you to kill you. I don't know, it's weird.
I view the Chucky doll as a confession of Hollywood. It's confessing its sins. In the movie, the toy has dark secrets and poses an immediate threat to the safety of the child who is playing with it. This is a highly contrived scenario, right? With this, it's racist, like there's voodoo involved, and how a serial killer getting his soul into a doll, like it's just really insane. But it's a critique of its own incursion, of Hollywood's incursion into childhood innocence, or the culture industry. I can't really just say Hollywood because we're talking about animation studios going all the way to Korea. The 80s doll had become much more than a toy. It was an extension of intellectual property with not so secret links to adult media that, like Chucky, eroded the psychic barriers defending children from adult content. So I really read Child's Play as perhaps an intentional critique of that whole industry of merchandising dolls to children that are pulling children toward adult media, which will then really like suck out their innocence in the form of these images, like the YouTuber.
That's really interesting. I've never watched Child's Play all the way through, or at least the original one. They released one like a couple years ago with Mark Hamill, and it was all about AI and stuff. I saw that one, but I'm in love with Mark Hamill, so that's the only reason I went and saw that one. I would like to watch it with that in mind. I feel like that would make it more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll adds a dimension to it, but the movie's so... It's not like you're going to find new things in it as a result.
I mean,
it's just sort of a straightforward plot.
The opening scene is a serial killer running into a toy store, right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Like that says everything you need to know about what they're trying to say about merchandising. But wait, there's more. Because I don't think Child's Play is at near the level of meta self-hatred as 1984's Gremlins. Which is credited alongside Temple of Doom for prompting the creation of the PG-13 rating after having been rated PG. So it's possible Temple of Doom was rated PG. I'm not sure. Yeah, you can look it up. So Gremlins cut to the heart of this mass cultural project. Despite its controversial rating, the movie was heavily merchandised and marketed to children. Let me just tell you about one of my favorite episodes of The Letterman Show.
Temple of Doom is rated PG.
Yeah, there you go. So it's Gremlins and this movie that caused the culture industry.
Were they the last two movies before PG-13?
I mean, they should have been rated PG-13 is the argument.
The first movie ever to receive a PG-13 rating was Red Dawn. A speculative war film about a group of Colorado teenagers. Oh, this is when Russia invades and they have to...
When did that come out? Mm-hmm. I'm curious how far after 1984.
Yeah.
When did that come out?
Probably right away.
July 1st, 1984.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. So it's right in the middle of the year.
Gremlins came out in June.
Even though it's a Christmas movie.
But a Christmas / horror film. It's so weird.
We're going to get into it.
I love it.
So let me tell you about Pee Wee Herman for a moment.
I love Pee Wee Herman.
In a moment of satire played so straight it was easy to miss, Pee Wee Herman showed off his collection of Gremlins merchandise on David Letterman's 1984 Halloween show. Herman covered Letterman's desk with bendable dolls, cereal, gum dispensers, candy, all the while joking about executive Steven Spielberg's need to have his name on the cereal box. Steven Spielberg's Gremlins. Even though he's just a producer, he didn't even write it or direct it.
Didn't Steven Spielberg direct Pee-wee's Great Adventure?
Oh,
no,
I don't
was
think
Burton.
so.
That was Tim Burton. Never mind.
The endless parade of objects showed the excesses of Gremlins merchandising. Letterman remarked to Herman that he had a lot of dough tied up in Gremlins. And the adult Herman's childlike character pointed up the absurdity of these products designed to market a horror movie to children. Mm-hmm. Like, it's hard not to see it as Pee Wee Herman is like schlepping out all of these toys.
Yeah.
You're thinking about him as an adult and as a child and seeing the like crazy disconnect. Gremlins tells the story of Gizmo, a Christmas present from a comically bad inventor to his adult son. In his first moments on screen, the helpless, big-eyed, furry elfin Gizmo is cuddled by his new owner and chatters like a toddler. When Gizmo is accidentally doused with water, it reproduces asexually, and its offspring are the same brand of cute as their parent, but not the same kind of friendly.
No, and they also were not nearly as cute. They also definitely designed them to look a little bit meaner.
And they were not very nice to Gizmo.
No, they were so mean to him.
When he sees the new set of Gizmos, the inventor muses in a moment of...
No, Mogwai.
Right. A moment of self-incriminating meta-commentary, the inventor says, "I'll bet every kid in America would like to have one of these." Come on. This is a movie sticking its thumb in our eyeball and saying, F you, I'm selling these to you right now. Walk outside of the movie theater into the gift shop, please. These new Mogwai are mischievous and manage to eat after midnight, causing them to form hideous alien-like cocoons. The Gizmos turned Gremlins finally emerge from their pulsing, oozing sacks, and the tone of the movie shifts abruptly from a quirky Christmas story to a grisly horror movie. We're talking about 40 minutes of this movie is a quirky Christmas movie.
Yeah. And I still have like these images burned in my brain of the cocoons and how disgusting they look, and then
the
like
pupal stage.
Oh,
Yes.
I hate. Oh my god! It really like I can't think about it without it like filling me with anxiety. It's really bad.
A science teacher is stalked through his classroom and murdered under his desk. Murder number
Forgot
one.
about that. See, when I was a
The
kid,
black man. They killed the black man.
that they always do it first.
Bastards.
But I remember I rewatched it as an adult on Christmas Eve with my family. I thought I was brave enough to do it. Couldn't sleep that night because I was so afraid of that. I slept with my light on Christmas Eve like last year. But I remember watching that scene and being like, I don't remember this as a child, but this is horrifying as an adult.
A housewife cautiously ascends to a gremlin-filled attic, kitchen knife in hand. Her son calls and tells her, Mom, they've hatched. Get out of the house. Remember, this was a Christmas movie, a quirky Christmas movie, 2 minutes ago.
That released in July. No, in June.
But Mom is resourceful. First, she kills one of the hideous monsters in a blender, then she stabs another to death and explodes a third in the microwave. A classic 80s trope.
I hated that part. Those ones always scared me the worst for some reason, like with the yellow icing all over their face. They were eating cookies, but for some reason that part fucking scared me so bad.
A fourth one is beheaded and its detached cranium fries in the fireplace. The gremlins go on to asexually spawn an army in the YMCA swimming pool.
Another scene that has given me nightmares. Watching like hundreds of them walk out of the YMCA is literally burned into my brain.
I think this is a powerful image, Savannah. It reveals the gremlins as a stand-in for mass culture and its considerable means of reproduction, which, as Herman demonstrated with his collection, had already been applied liberally to gremlins on screen and off. The gremlins are mass-producing. They have been mass-produced. They are a mass-produced product. This is their function. But they're not out for anything good.
Just chaos.
Sound like anybody we know? Steven Spielberg?
I blame the YMCA.
Yeah, it's the YMCA's
It's the YMCA's
fault. They need
plan.
to lock up their pools better.
Another tonal change introduced arguably the most tiresome sequence in the movie, as the gremlins ran amok, comically killing the neighbors, drinking and smoking, playing inscrutable games with puppets. I literally had no idea what was happening there, and swinging from the ceiling fans.
Well, and then like it seemed as if they were killing like every person they came across, but then the love interest who was at the bar, they were just like, yeah, you're gonna serve us at the bar now.
Right.
Because she's
Like,
innocent.
yeah,
Phoebe
maybe.
Cates.
And also, like, were they paying her? I mean, like they seem to know how a bar
Her
works.
monologue about her dad dying is the best part of that movie, though. It's so good.
Nowhere, too. And what did she say? She's like, that's when I learned Santa Claus wasn't real.
Yeah, when, like her dad's body is rotting in the chimney.
So awful.
So the creatures are finally incinerated by a gas explosion, spoiler alert, while watching Disney's first full-length animated feature, Snow White. Mm-hmm. I call this an insincere suggestion that the industry could rescue the viewer from its own assault on childhood with wholesome content. The gremlins are destroyed by Snow White. The movie is, I think, like facetiously saying, yeah, we're going to ruin your childhood, child who's in this movie, because we talked you into coming to this movie with all the merchandising. We can save you, though, with the old school 1930s Disney animated movies. Look, the animated movie kills the evil gremlin. You're going to be okay, kid. But it's too late, right? The cat's out of the bag. Do you see that, though? Do you see how that symbol works?
It is interesting. I mean, and it's a pretty fucked up scene, though, still. Like, I remember watching, like, when they light it on fire and you can see them all trying to, like, escape the building.
Yeah. But we're not done.
No, because Spike survives.
Rather than a G-rated ending, the tone shifts back again to a horror movie as the lead gremlin attempts to massacre the protagonist with a chainsaw before being melted by the sun.
Yeah.
Poor Stripe.
Oh, it is Stripe. It's not Spike. Oh, wow.
Because he's the only one with hair.
Yeah,
he's got
he
a
is.
mohawk.
He is. A funny story about Stripe, too. The second Gremlins movie takes place in New York. So when you go to New York, there's a lot of Gremlins merchandise everywhere. And when I was a kid, my sister, Alex, who sometimes listens to this, so hello, Alex. I'll see if you
Alex.
remember this. we were walking through New York, and she saw a gremlin bobblehead of Stripe, and she purposefully put it directly in my face, and it made me so upset that I punched her and knocked her to the ground. And my grandfather was like, "What is going on?" And like drags us down the street in New York City. And I didn't get in trouble because he was like, "How dare you show her that gremlin?"
Let me do a little more close reading here. The poor quality of the inventor's products is a running gag throughout the movie, right? They work at first, says the mother, but then they start to go bad. In other words, the father is peddling junk the consumer is bound to regret purchasing, much like the Gremlins themselves. But the whole movie functions in much the same way, promising a PG entertainment for children that turns out to be no such thing. 40 minutes in, parents suddenly regret bringing their 10-year-old into the theater.
I'm wondering, like, have you read anything about, like, parents being like, "I regretted bringing my kids to see this movie"?
I mean, I'm going to talk about some of the complaints that came, but yes, this is why the PG-13 rating had to be created.
No, yeah, for sure. I mean, I just don't, because it's been around for so long now.
At this point, I think.
I was talking
but
to
I still wouldn't show my kids this
No,
movie.
absolutely not. I
They can watch the first 40 minutes.
They can watch the first 40. And that's how it ends.
Yeah.
Corinne would be fine with it.
I was talking to my dad about it, and because he was like, "Yeah, that movie like literally traumatized me when I was a kid."
Yeah.
Like,
this is why.
Yeah.
Because you, as a child, thought it was for you, and then it wasn't. At least Ghostbusters, I knew all along as a child that it wasn't for me, and I got to watch my 2 minutes and get out of Dodge. Gremlins, which was the same year as Ghostbusters, did not make it clear that its tone was for children, or at least open to children enjoying it.
Did it show the creepy gremlins at all in like the trailer and stuff, or like people didn't watch
buy them.
trailers
They were
as much?
merchandised.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you could buy them
before the movie came out.
Before the movie came out.
Oh, wow.
But I don't think their creepiness was the whole. I mean, it was the microwave and all those like tropes of 80s horror. You know?
Yeah, no, that's true.
Anyhow, but this inventor, right? There's a character in the movie who's showing you what the movie is doing to you while you're watching it.
That's weird. But it does it change anything that like he wasn't supposed to have the Mogwai? Like he stole it.
He did steal it.
Like the dude was like, "You
It
can't
doesn't
handle
change
this."
the fact that his products, like
No,
this running
I'm
gag,
just wondering
is...
if this changes, like if there's anything to him being like, "I want to buy this for my son," and the guy was like, "You cannot have this thing," and then he takes Gizmo anyway.
And imagines him as a mass-produced product.
Yeah,
He's kind of a villain in that way.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's his fault that all those people died.
But it's precisely what the movie is already doing to us and our childhoods.
It's like, you can't have
mass
this
murdering
thing,
our
and then
childhoods.
the dude is like,
Yes.
no, but you can have this thing, child.
Yeah, and you want it. Don't you want it? The producer's capitalist ambitions, like the inventors, trump any sense of responsibility to the public. In this way, the hideous gremlin was the true underbelly of the cute Gizmo merchandising scheme. The gremlins were cuddly and ugly, funny and murderous, straddling the genres of comedy and horror. Gremlins represented the culture industry, taunting its own consumer. They seem to be confessing, "We will sell you cute and funny, but what you'll get is dark and gruesome, and if you think you've seen the end of it, there's plenty more where this came from." Indeed, the movie's commercial success, finishing second to Ghostbusters at the box office, guaranteed that the formula Gremlins had established for profitability would be repeated again and again in ways we've already more or less discussed. Batman, etc.
Did Gremlins come out before Batman? Oh, yeah,
1984, 5 years earlier.
Yeah.
The culture industry was anxious to expand the limits of what was acceptable content for children and thereby maximize the size of the audience for its products. But its products were increasingly haunted by this intentional subversiveness. The Little Mermaid, the movie that launched the Disney Renaissance, which was, for those of you who are not Disney nerds, a term that is used to refer to the return to profitability for the corporation's animated full-length feature film business. This movie was troubled by controversy, a weird controversy. The company was accused of having placed a penis in the sandcastle-like structure. Didn't think I'd bring this up today, did you? On the movie's cover. And some viewers claimed that the priest at the prince's wedding had a visible erection under his cassock.
Although I think there's some proof to not the priest thing, but the
penis.
the penis. They're both. I mean, but the one on the cover of the movie, it wasn't necessarily like in the movie itself, but on the cover of the movie.
Just on the cover,
supposedly there was like an animator who was getting fired and purposefully did it.
That's the legend. I've also read that it was not supposed to look. He just didn't know that it looked like a penis. Yeah.
Which, fair enough, because honestly, I don't think it does that much.
That was Disney's company line, is that the guy just didn't realize that it looked like a penis.
Gotcha.
So those were the perfectly innocent explanations for those incidents. They showed how boundary pushing, though, could come back to bite the industry. So people were looking. They were assuming that weird stuff was starting to happen in these movies. Walt Disney in 1930 was not worried about this. No. But in 1983, now that our hackles are up since Gremlins, parents are looking out for this stuff.
Interesting.
I'll tell you, the subtext of the movie, which, let me just be honest, let's just think about this for a second. The Little Mermaid, which featured a naked teenager rising from the ocean like a supermodel. Just think about that scene for what you can picture it right now, can't you? Her hair flailing back. Yep. She's butt-ass naked 15-year-old girl.
Yep. 16, Rob.
My apologies.
She goes, I'm 16 years old.
Sorry. But this invited viewers to see sex hidden under the surface. It's an obvious invitation because you're like an adult in the movie having weird feelings suddenly about a 16-year-old cartoon. So you're going to think, what is going on? What are they doing here? What is my children are here, right? Odd. Think about like Jasmine in her BDSM phase at the end of the movie. I have to. She's sexy enough, and then they make her sexier and chain her up.
Because they put her in red.
And there you are with your 8-year-olds.
Yeah, no. We talked about this in the Esca episode.
Right, I can't stop bringing it up. It haunts me.
I mean, Princess Leia.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the supposedly like George Lucas telling her that she couldn't wear underwear because there was no underwear in space or some bullshit. So apparently that's like a thing.
That's true. Yeah, astronauts don't wear underwear. I've read that. That's not true.
I was about to say, hold on a second.
That's not true.
That sounds like bullshit. They have like layers of clothing on.
It's like made out of aluminum or something. For space reasons.
Sure.
In 1990, another story, the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie ran into trouble in the UK when a government aversion to martial arts violence, which was kind of racist, led to the studio editing out some of the Turtles' weapons and retitling the movie The Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles for a British release. This is true. In the sequel, the Turtles didn't use... So also, we'll go back and watch the sequel. I think it's The Secret of the Ooze was the second one.
I loved that movie.
Notice how the Turtles never use their weapons. They don't use their weapons in the UK or America. They instead resort to combat with bare fists, baguettes, and sausage links.
I don't remember that.
There is a scene where Leonardo is in a net and he has swords strapped to his back and doesn't remove them in order to get himself out of the net.
What does he use? His sausage?
He just waits, I think. I can't remember how he gets out of the net, but he literally has the means to cut himself out in seconds.
Mikey comes in with a skateboard and goes, "Cowabunga, dude!"
Just like drags it. They throw pizza at each other. The public backlash to both of these movies was perturbing, but if I'm being honest, it did little to impact their profitability, and the industry was hardly chastened by this. The Ninja Turtles was second only to Batman in its opening box office sales, and The Little Mermaid was the first animated film to break $100 million in its initial run. People do love naked 16-year-olds.
Well, that's not the only thing the movie has going for it.
Prince Eric.
It does have a Jamaican crab that may or may not be racist.
And a fish that may or may not be a real fish.
Yeah, that's
true. About that. It's not based on any real fish.
A random fantasy fish. But, it is a mermaid, John, so I guess we'll let him slide on flounder.
If the songs are good.
Yeah, all right. Today, the industry's... but you also watch that traumatizing...
Okay,
so we do include the song where children who have been watching fish and falling in love with them all movies suddenly watch a chef carve them up and sing about it?
Also, Ursula was kind of terrifying.
She was.
Right.
Those little grass things, whatever she turned people into, that part always terrified me.
Horrifying.
Taking humanity away,
But
that's
that
not...
song is a good song, though.
The villain song?
Yeah, the villain songs are always the
She had
best
some
songs.
pipes.
So, yes, she's also a great singer.
Today, the industry's and audience's nostalgia for both movies have led to revivals, with the animated mermaid now being live action and the live action turtles now animated again. So,
Which apparently the animated one was really good. I didn't get a chance to see it, but the live action Little Mermaid was fine. I hate every single one of the live action
why
Disney
are we doing
remakes.
this?
They're just always worse. And then they took like a movie that's an hour and a half and made it like 2.5 hours. And I'm like, I'm so fucking bored. I already know how this movie ends.
I do not mean for any of what I'm saying to sound like a conservative critique or a call for renewed censorship. I only want to suggest the degree to which the culture industry's boundary breaking was a capitalist endeavor undertaken in pursuit of a larger audience. There's also, of course, exceptions. There was Jim Henson's whole phase where he tried to make movies for adults, but couldn't quite squeeze out of that audience. But
Yeah.
he didn't merchandise Dark Crystal.
No.
Or,
I mean, it wasn't
Labyrinth.
really
You couldn't have the David
merchandisable.
Bowie doll.
No.
Although apparently Mattel did create a David Bowie Barbie, 2 of them.
I'm not surprised by that because his outfits, I'm sure they have like an Elton John one too.
Well, Stevie Nicks just got one. That's
Oh,
why.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, those movies are not in any sense marketable at all. I feel
Well,
like.
you would think, but so Gremlins theoretically shouldn't be either.
No, you're right though, and they are the creatures in Labyrinth are cuter than the Gremlins. That's
Right.
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I have such admiration for Henson. He was certainly a flawed human being, but I think he was very careful about merchandising and that kind of stuff because he was aware of his appeal to a child audience.
Yeah.
But in those cases, when he was trying to create those movies, he was not following a Spielberg playbook. He literally wanted to create a movie for adults with puppets. So this is my way of saying what I'm talking about is not universally true, even of 80s movies, but this was a technique that they developed in 1984 specifically based on what had happened with the Star Wars movies and then carried forward.
And it's kind of interesting too, because like nowadays you see people like shitting on kids movies for being too kiddie.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, but at the end of the
not
day,
for you, man.
it's not for you. And I agree with their arguments sometimes because they're like, well, kids movies don't have to be bad. And I'm like, I agree with that. But there are like people who are making fun of, like, I see people on Twitter yesterday making fun of Frozen and they're like, oh, Frozen's not very deep. And I'm like, because it's a fucking kids movie,
for
guys.
children,
It's
you
for
guys.
children. It's supposed to be mind blowing for the kid to be like, oh, the love was true sister love and not love between a man and a woman or whatever.
Right.
Like, it's like, I'm sorry for you adult that is not mind blowing, but it's not for you.
Yeah. But that's the idea. We
Yeah.
think that this media, we've been fooled into thinking that there is no line between
Yeah.
media for children and media for
Yeah.
adults since 1984. The invention of the PG-13 rating had nothing to do with artistic freedom or a well-considered understanding of what children should watch, and it had everything to do with marketing. Who cares if the Gremlins are rated R, except insofar as you want to sell toys to children?
And rated R movies always make way less than PG-13 and PG movies.
Of course,
Always.
because you cut out that huge segment of the audience. The industry could hardly have been thinking so far ahead, but it ended up creating a generation of children predisposed to enjoy products that blurred the line between childhood and adulthood, and so would continue to enjoy the same products for decades. We're talking about Barbie, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Super Mario, the Ninja Turtles, etc. This is what happens when children raised in a post-Gremlins culture grow up.
And people, like, still to this day love Gremlins. I mean, like, not that you shouldn't, because, like, it does have its merits. Like, it is a good movie for adults.
I'm almost praising its honesty.
Yeah.
It's an interesting critique of itself.
Yeah.
But I think that it's largely missed.
And it's really interesting, too, because, like, my boss used to work for Build-A-Bear, and I yelled at her and told her Build-A-Bear jump scared me the other day on Twitter because they announced that they're making Build-A-Bear Gremlins and like of the ugly ones. So like, and I'm like, and they're ugly, and I hate them, and even seeing them in cute Build-A-Bear form. And then we were talking about it, and I remember I love Batman, I love Lego. Watching the Lego Batman movie, at one point, Lego Gremlins are a villain in that movie, and I remember being in the theater in that movie being terrified, like, why are the Gremlins here? But they made Lego Gremlin stuff too. Like, it's like they're making all this, they're still making it kind of for children, even.
And for 80s kids who are adults. Mm-hmm. They create and consume more movies with adult themes centered around characters marketed as toys. This certainly has its upside in giving children the freedom to appropriate their favorite characters in their own creative play, but its downside is the strong attachment forged between children and the mass market, yielding decades of repetitive content. From Barbie to Batman to Bronies, the 80s were destined to persist and return like glamorous plastic-coated revenants in new, rebooted, revived, repurposed stories made in the spirit of childhood for adults. Now I know you Barbie movie lovers are crying and yelling at your radios. But after they've made the 5th one of these, come back and tell me I was right.
Barbie dolls are coming back.
Barbie movies are coming back. This is not the last one. This is
I like the
far
original
from the last one we've seen.
Animated Barbie movies.
Those movies rocked. Princess and the Pauper.
Oh, so
that
good.
movie.
They all had like this very
The cat who
like
barked.
straight up moral message, right?
Yeah, it was cute. They were cute movies.
Fairytopia. I love Bibble.
Oh my god.
I'm a Bibble stan.
Made for children, though. Those are
those
made
were
for children.
Yeah, because they had the cat. It was like Wolfie.
It was Wolfie.
And Serafina, because I loved that
Serafina.
cat. Shit. Mermaidtopia was also.
Oh yeah.
Here's the important question: have I persuaded you?
Yeah.
That Gremlins ruined my entire life. Yes.
Ruined all of our lives. Well, I mean, that essentially the 80s movie ruined childhood.
I can see that.
It pulled it into the into the commercial sphere in ways that it never had been before.
That is really.
We've lived commercialized childhoods. You guys have.
Oh,
as,
for
as
sure.
have I.
I mean, I'm living it now. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I am the adult that buys
Yes.
the toys and goes and sees. I'm literally wearing like a Disney sweatshirt right now.
But how common is that now?
Oh, it's
how
I
many
mean, like,
people is
everyone
this?
I work with.
You can't imagine this in the World War II generation, right? These guys get back from the war in the
and
50s and the 60s and set
buying,
up their
like,
suburban homes, and they're
they
like,
buy action figures
Popeye
and stuff.
yeah, they're
dolls.
not.
Yeah.
Right. They're not
No.
obsessing over these things the way we do today. We
Yeah.
are so tuned in to the mass culture industry. I don't want to suggest that like there wasn't a commercial impetus to sell to children going back like 1,000 years, maybe
yeah.
not 1,000 years, but as long as we had a concept for children, we tried to sell them toys.
Yeah.
But never were we so caught up in the mass market as what happened in the 80s when the lines between media and toy blurred, and then the lines between adult and child blurred, and the whole thing just became this mess of selling us toys.
Yeah. Ugh.
Gremlins cereal.
That is crazy. I really can't believe that they did that they marketed to Gremlins to children.
You bastards.
You bastards.
Any final thoughts, John?
There was this one quick, when you were talking about Star Wars, it reminded me of a story I heard. So you've probably either heard of this or can refute it, but in episode 6, the Ewoks were originally intended to be Wookiees, but they thought that Ewoks would be more marketable for children.
Create the merchandise.
Yes.
Yeah.
So instead of the Wookiees, they just created this new thing.
It would have
I
been
think
so much
partially-
cooler if it was Wookiees.
It would have been.
Yeah.
I hated the Ewoks. Ewoks are my least favorite thing in Star Wars.
I don't know anything about the Wookiee thing, but I do know that the Ewoks were definitely made to sell toys, and like every new thing, like they tried to in the Last Jedi, which I fell for this one because I love
Was it the Pogs?
the Porgs.
Porgs,
yes.
right,
Okay,
right.
so for Occult Confessions listeners who are listening to this, I actually really love birds. Like, birds are like some of my favorite animals ever. And so the porgs, when they came out, they merchandised the crap out of them, and they're literally in the movie for like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
But they're so cute. But they say the reason that they did that was because the island that they filmed on had puffins flying around, so they created like a space bird or whatever. But then, like, sure, I'm sure they did do that, but they didn't need to market it the way that they did.
And the BB-8 plushies. And
but BB-8 is so fucking cute.
See what I mean?
I know. Also, in Ahsoka, in the newest show that just came out, I can't wait until they make toys of these little guys. She's running around in this like horrible hellscape, and then all of a sudden she like finds a rock and she accidentally kicks it, and there's like a little dude who lives in the rock, and he's like a hermit crab guy, and it turns out that the person they're looking for has been living with these hermit crab guys, and I love them so much. They're so cute. So like they're just really good at doing that in Star Wars.
Here's another TV or movie series, I guess, that kind of fits this mold in, like Minions.
Oh yeah,
sure.
Middle-aged women love them some Minions.
Yeah, and they'd be so easy to make because they're like literally all the same character except like slightly different from one another, and then they speak gibberish, so they can have any person ever voice act it. Like it's a good marketing thing. Like they just changed an entire land at Universal to be Minions Land, and I didn't get to ride any of it, but I watched a ride through, and it looks like the shittiest ride that's ever been made. So, but
it's IP run amok, man.
It is, and it was kind of weird because like I was at the Halloween Horror Nights thing, and like I'm talking to this like super creepy voodoo guy, and then I turn a corner and it's like there's a minion on the wall, and I'm like, oh, that takes me out of it a little bit. That I'm not at some creepy circus. I'm just in Universal with this creepy guy talking to me.
I mean, the whole concept of IP, right? Intellectual property. It's sort of like the notion that we're content creators. Like, it's so insulting to what we do. Even with the podcast, like, I'm not a content creator. I'm a writer. I'm not creating content. I'm telling a story, or you know, you're telling a story, right? In your episodes, in this case, I'm making an argument that is a kind of a story. But come on, like.
But that's what we would be called. We would be called content creators.
I think that's such bullshit, or that we have intellectual property. I mean, we don't, but you know that these stories become intellectual property. It suggests that they're a capitalist thing, not an artistic thing anymore. The art is gone, or the storytelling is gone, and replaced with this whole other mindset that's purely about merchandising and sales.
Have you seen like the new phenomenon? Because like Winnie the Pooh just became like public domain, and now there's like all
not
these
Disney's Winnie the Pooh.
No,
but the original Winnie the Pooh.
Yes, and so people
Blood and
are
Honey.
taking it, and like they made a horror movie about it, and it looked stupid. And they're making a sequel to that horror movie because it made so much money. And then there's
Just
like
a
a new
gimmick.
horror game coming out about Winnie the Pooh and stuff like that.
Why? Why
because
Winnie the Pooh and horror? It just seems like an odd combination.
I guess because I think it's like funny / like I think it's almost like Gremlins, where they're trying to be edgy, where it's like, oh, this is that thing for kids, but it's scary.
Make it for adults.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go. I guess it's just drawing on the old playbook.
Didn't Mickey become public domain?
Sort of.
The original one.
Yeah, the
Like
Steamboat Willie one.
Okay, gotcha.
And then they keep like updating his design, so like he'll never be fully like public domain and
Disney's
stuff.
tricky,
Yeah.
but eventually it will catch up to the Mickey and the red pants.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. But I don't. That's like a whole thing. They have like a bunch of shit, and then they've also lobbied to have a lot of laws changed so that Mickey will stay their own personal thing for a while.
Yeah, time itself caught up with them.
Yep.
What do we say to end this? Thank you for riding, and please keep your hands and arms
Well,
inside
maybe
the car.
I don't know. Well, on a mic flip, do you want to say something different?
It was a strange ride still. I appreciate you riding with us. Thank you for riding. Strange
What
ride.
do I say? What do I say? Thank you for riding along with us. Watch your step as you exit, and remember to take all personal belongings with you.